He's kind of like the boomerang Prime Minister, or boomerang former Prime Minister. You know, he gets thrown out of something, out of the headlines, and then he kind of just returns. And I don't know how many times in the last 5 years I've read Tony Blair is talking about digital IDs. Tony Blair thinks we should have digital ID. Tony Blair says digital ID is the way to solve many of our problems. Tony Blair says digital ID is the only way forward. Tony Blair says digital IDs are the way to make the world a safer place. He doesn't stop. About a year ago, he teamed up with William Hague, and do you know what they both said? Digital IDs are the way to solve all of our ills. They love the digital ID. Now, so he's reviving this former policy that he had. It was a failed policy. He wanted ID cards when he was in power. It didn't happen. He believes that digital IDs can challenge the world on big issues that we're facing. Immigration, health and taxes, he mentions. He says, our taxes are high, our spending levels and public debt are high, our service outcomes are poor, so we spend more on the NHS than ever before, with more staff than ever before, and the service is coming apart at the seams. Now, that's fair enough. What's all that got to do with digital ID? He insisted that the UK and other countries that he worked with through the Tony Blair Institute need to adopt a radical new approach for the future by embracing artificial intelligence and digital ID. There it is again. Outlining a vision of the future, he said, lower taxes, reduced spending and improved outcomes have often seemed like the holy grail of governing, desirable but impossible. Modern technology puts it within reach. He says our present system isn't working. It's time for a shake-up, once-in-a-generation disruption, and digital ID is a good place to start. He said there's one tool available today that wasn't available back when he was in power. He says we're living through a 21st century technological revolution, every bit as dramatic in its effects, if not more so, than the 18th century industrial revolution. This is a tipping point. We should embrace it. Tony Blair says, think about how we live and interact with each other, how we use Amazon to shop, mobile phones for banking, Google Maps for directions, apps to watch TV, consume news, book trains, flights, holidays, entertainment. And they all use our data to personalise our service. He said, imagine that all your health information was in one place, easy, with your permission for anyone, anywhere, in the health service to see it. That your passport, driving licence, anything you need to prove your ID was in one simple digital wallet, unique to you, that could purchase and pay for goods, services, using your digital ID. He says there is precedent for this. He's talking about countries like India, Singapore, the UAE, even Estonia are doing this now. Huge amounts of time and bureaucracy is saved. He says, but now think of all the other problems of governing. One of the biggest challenges is immigration. Is the number one of people here without permission, since there are multiple ways of entering Britain lawfully, but then staying unlawfully. The solution to that? Digital IDs. Just answer this. Digital ID, is it a force for the good or the bad? And I'll tell you the problem I have with this. There's a bit, and I think I probably speak for most people, where you go, God, think of all, you know, every now and again you need to find your birth certificate, or you need to find some of your driving license. You might not keep it in your wallet, and you know, you've got all these different little papers and files, and everyone has their own system, or they just chuck it in a drawer. So the OCD in my brain is enamoured with the idea that you would have this sort of one place where everything is kept nicely. You know, I'm like this with passwords. I like to have, you know, I like to know where it all is. It's nicely organised. If it could be alphabetical, I would make it so. Colour-coded, even better. So on the face of it, it kind of, there is an appeal on that. But of course, that's not what it's about. And I think the rule of thumb that we should have all learned is, if something promises you to enhance your life or an element of life or some other aspect of how you kind of function in terms of admin, if it looks and sounds like the easiest thing in the world, then put some oven gloves on when you handle it, because this is something that could be a little bit too hot to handle, toxic possibly, in terms of its potential implications. And the way this, of course, is sold is, well, everything's in one place, that saves money, less bureaucracy, lower taxes. Isn't that good? Immigration can be sorted. You know the phrase, be careful of what you wish for? Benjamin Franklin, I think it was, came out with a phrase. I can't fully remember it off the top of my head, but I'll get it. But yes, if you desire all of this, then you frankly don't deserve your freedom. Because, yes, it might well look good on paper. Brilliant. Look, here's a phone. I've got one app on there. I press it. Bingo. Everything is there for me to see. What could be simpler? But, of course, it means much more than that, digital ID. It also means the ability to track you in lots of ways. Now, Blair seems to be saying, well, forget it, you're being tracked already. You know, every time you watch TikTok videos for an hour. But what do you think they're doing? They're serving it up to you. He uses this as an example, actually. They're serving it up to you because they know what you want. Every time you jump on a bus or a train, you're using something that is digitally based, whether it's a contactless card, whether it's your phone. It's already in the system. You haven't got to watch many episodes of Crime Watch to see how often, despite some real challenging criminal cases, the following somebody's journey part of it is relatively simple. They know that they went from that town to that town. They bought a McDonald's in Leicester. They boarded a train for Newcastle. When they got to Newcastle, they jumped on a bus. They got off the bus, went and bought some beer in the local offie. I mean, you can trace all of that really simply. But, of course, what else can you trace? And why would you want that information? Well, why would a government need that information? The sort of thirst for data I'm slightly confused about.